Thank you to John, Peggy, and the Waltham Chamber of Commerce for hosting me this morning. I am Callie Patrick, and I'm a mind-body wellness coach at A Journey into Health, which is quite simply me. I help professionals, entrepreneurs, and other busy people sleep better, eat better, move better, and improve their stress resilience. So my first question to you this morning was going to be, did you wake feeling refreshed? Show of hands? Without coffee, did you wake feeling refreshed? Interesting. All right, thank you. Good question. So my business, A Journey into Health, is built on a foundation of my own personal wellness journey. And this morning, I'll share 3 influencing stories from my life to illustrate important points about the mind-body system. In 2011, I was a full-time manager at a large local technology company. I was passionate about my role, which was about making software easier for ordinary people to understand and use. But as I moved up the ranks, the stress I experienced increased tremendously. Unrealistic deadlines and schedules were the norm. As an example, I was quadruple booked over my lunch hour every day of the week. Now, in hindsight, I feel like I could have just skipped all the meetings to have my lunch because everyone would have just assumed that I was at a different meeting, right? But I didn't have those kinds of insights back then, and I certainly didn't have the good boundaries that I have now. The overload of meetings and work and the lack of personal and breathing space and the fear of not exceeding the bar in my role made me anxious during the day and took its toll on my sleep. You see, I was a type A perfectionist kind of person. Can anybody relate to that? At my wit's end, I enrolled in yoga teacher training at the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in Lenox, Massachusetts. I'd been making yearly trips there for about 13 years, participating in various wellness programs and taking yoga classes. I had no intention of ever teaching yoga. I simply wanted to learn more about how to deal with the stress and anxiety in my life and do it naturally. The very first time I stood in front of other humans and tried to verbalize how they should move was, as you'd expect, scary. But something else happened. As I practiced teaching, I discovered, and I viscerally felt, like a completely different person. I wasn't faking calm or peace or contentment or anything specifically yogic. I just was all those things. I got this glimpse into a possible alternate me and one I liked so much better than the person that I was. I'd known deep down since my undergraduate years that computer work didn't really suit me, but I'd been pushing that feeling aside because, hey, it was good money, job security, and these are things my mom wanted for me, which who could blame her? Stress is an unavoidable part of life, and small amounts of stress are good for us. Stress can push us to achieve more and even be better people. But what I learned about myself and what I see in working with clients is that many of us are so busy going through the motions of our lives, putting on the performance we think is expected of us, and we miss subtle signals from our mind-body system, which might be trying to indicate to us that something isn't aligned. It often isn't until our health is severely impacted, mentally with burnout, anxiety, or depression, physically with high blood pressure, heart disease, chronic pain, or fatigue, that we start to pay attention. The mind-body system is a very powerful messenger trying to tell us what we need more or less of in each and every moment of our lives. So for just a minute, put down your utensils and your drinks. Place both feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and then let it out. How does your body feel in this moment? Is it energized or even a bit wired? Sluggish or tired? What about your mind? Is it able to pause and concentrate on these sensations? Or is it racing on to other things? Just notice. And if you haven't already, you may open your eyes. This tuning into the mind and body is a skill that one practices over the course of months and sometimes years, partly because most of us are so used to ignoring our inner worlds until they affect our outer ones. Now, when I do this kind of exercise, I look out onto the crowd and I see a lot of people open their eyes. Right? What happened? It's just a moment. Anyway, this insight during yoga teacher training changed my life, and it created some problems. When I told my husband I wanted to quit my lucrative tech job, my career, to become a yoga teacher, you might expect his initial reaction. However, I discovered rather painfully over the next few months that I really didn't know who I married. I also began to see my colleagues with more clarity, overwhelmed and burned out, neglecting themselves by failing to eat, to rest, to hydrate, to breathe, and so on. I wanted to help them. And I needed to show them they needed help because they were so immersed in the work culture they'd forgotten they were human beings requiring basic self-care. At this point, I felt trapped. Here I'd created this career, I had this marriage, I even had a house in Cedarwood, and none of it fit me anymore. As you might have experienced yourself, change can be hard, and I couldn't bring myself yet to admit this, much less dismantle everything. So, I started dieting. Seems funny now, but in hindsight, my type A-ness didn't just disappear, and I wanted to control something. I followed a strict eating plan, and I bought those Bowflex weights that you see on TV, the ones the muscly guys use, and yes, I used them. I weighed and measured my food and myself, everything in this effort to become long and lean. Now, you can tell by my relationship to the podium that I am 5 feet 3/4 inches tall on a good day. So the long and lean was an interesting goal. This backfired terribly. I started binge eating and overeating, and despite dieting and exercising, I gained so much weight I had to buy all new clothes. I never purged, I was never anorexic, but now I had this disordered eating pattern, and one that messed with my self-esteem and placed a layer of depression on top of my anxiety. I knew the problem wasn't the food. I didn't want to eat what I did. I felt compelled and almost possessed sometimes. Again, to help myself, I investigated trainings in nutrition. I researched dietitian schools. None of it made sense to me, though. I was well-versed in what I should be eating. I just wasn't doing it. And I seemed to sabotage myself and rebel at every opportunity. Can anyone relate to that? Then I found the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. Their messages spoke directly to me about what I was experiencing, one of which was about using food to cope with extreme stress and fear of change. I enrolled to become an eating psychology coach, to my husband's great dismay. Between the time I signed up and the time I graduated, I moved out of my house. I got a different tech job with more flexibility, and a divorce was in progress. Health challenges often visit us to push us out of our comfort zones. We're afraid, and we try to hold on to what we've known and enjoyed. It's at these times that we can stop seeing that we have choices. Poor habits can become very effective coping mechanisms. We can turn inward and stop seeking help and support. One of the ways I now help clients is by illuminating options they can no longer see, and by encouraging them through changes they know they must make to improve their health and their life. Let's do another quick exercise, because that's just how I am. Once again, put your feet flat, let your hands rest in your lap, and close your eyes. Can you call to mind what it is that you last ate or drank. Can you remember it specifically? Or is it kind of a blur? Do you know why you chose to eat or drink it? Just notice without judging yourself. Can you feel any effects of that food or drink on your body? How about your mind? Again, simply notice. You may set an intention to check in again in a few hours. You might even ask the question, what do I need to nourish my mind and my body? You might already sense that sometimes the answer isn't actually food or drink. How might your well-being change if you did this kind of check-in on a regular basis? If you haven't already, you may open your eyes. Very good. Practice helps, right? So in December of 2013, I moved to Austin, Texas. It was 7 degrees here with snow on the ground, and when I got off the plane, it was about 72 and sunny. There I began working full-time on my business. I taught 14 yoga classes a week, and I saw private coaching clients. I enrolled in a yoga therapy training program to further my studies. And one prerequisite into the training, I developed low back pain. I was quickly diagnosed with sacroiliitis. Yet the pain spread to my hip, and then it started moving and changing, such that every time I went to the doctor, it was like I described a completely different problem. I amassed a huge binder filled with paperwork from prior appointments, and I would show this to each successive doctor, hoping they could put the pieces together and figure out what was wrong. As someone who never experienced serious physical health issues before, I became exhausted by the countless x-rays, MRIs, and blood draws. I saw primary care doctors, orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists, rheumatologists, chiropractors, acupuncturists, myofascial release workers, and that's not the full list. Some of these helped, but only for a short time. Based on all my tests, I was fine. My MRIs came back as, quote, unremarkable, which was my favorite term given that I had just turned 40 and I could barely sit, walk, stand, or sleep due to pain. Imagine for a moment that the person sitting next to you started poking you in a spot that was a little sensitive, repeatedly and unrelentingly. Yet no one else could see them doing it. You'd look perfectly fine on the outside, but I assure you everything would become 10 times harder. I was still teaching my yoga classes and coaching my clients, learning about all kinds of ailments in yoga therapy training. I'd repeat this pattern of, I'm going to this new practitioner, and I'm really hopeful that they'll be able to figure this out, alternated with, I'm going to be in pain forever, so why bother? This lasted for over 2 years, during which I couldn't rely on my standard stress reliever, which was always movement and exercise. Finally, a chronically ill friend, who has sadly since passed, suggested I get tested for Lyme disease, which is an illness she battled for many years. I figured I'd grown up here in the Northeast. I'd had countless experiences in the woods, and quite frankly, I had almost every other test. While I never had a tick on me, never had a bite, never had a bullseye rash that I noticed, which I think I would have, I was subsequently diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, which is a disease that some medical professionals don't believe exists. Because I knew my friend's story and her experience with antibiotics, which is still a standard treatment, my treatments, which I continue to this day, include only herbs and supplements. Because of her and a doctor who was willing to do things differently, I have my life back. but I have my life back in a new way. While really reluctant at first, I learned another way to cope with what life was throwing at me, namely breath work, which is called pranayama in yoga. I also had to learn how to truly pace myself, how to alternate rest with work, so I didn't overtax my system. Back then, I had to lay down 15 minutes for every hour that I did something, including something as non-taxing as computer work. Self-care used to be such a difficult thing for me to fit into my schedule, and now it's like brushing my teeth. I do it because I know, mind, body, and spirit, what it's like to have my capacity to be in the world taken away because I'm deprioritizing what my system requires. I now always remember my humanness. While I was trained in all sorts of health issues, nothing taught me more about working with chronic pain and fatigue than experiencing the frustration of it myself. Now, chronic issues can start with small warning signs, which sometimes even the best medical professionals can miss. I've helped several clients with persistent and untreatable migraines, for example, release the neck and shoulder tension responsible for their headaches. And I do this by teaching them to do simple, but not necessarily easy things, such as gentle stretching, paying attention, and breathing properly. Close your eyes for the last time this morning. Feel how you're holding your body. Resist the urge to change anything. What is your posture like? Where do you need to engage more? Is your jaw tight? Where can you relax a little? What is your breath like? Is it easy, long, and smooth? Or are you holding your breath? Is it short or shallow? Again, just notice. And if you haven't already, you may open your eyes. Since moving back to Massachusetts in 2017, I've focused my business on creating programs to help others who have similar struggles. I call myself a mind-body wellness coach because health concerns such as difficulty sleeping, chronic pain and fatigue, emotional eating, and generalized stress affect humans in multifaceted, connected ways. I've learned powerful ways to address physical pain, for example, through the mind. And I've helped people deal with mental worry mainly through the body. Sometimes using the mind to affect the body and vice versa can be more successful than trying to physically heal the body and mentally control the mind. In certain cases, using both in tandem can be even more impactful. The breath, known as the energy body, is underutilized and endlessly helpful. Many, many people today are living in their minds and experience a disconnection or a disassociation from their bodies. And the mind won't quiet. As a result, we can no longer intuit what's happening, nor what we need to feel better. And sometimes even when we do, we find it hard to listen because our present work culture can make it so challenging to set boundaries and take the time we truly need. My 20+ years in technology and business taught me the importance of making small changes that are practical for how we live. No matter how fast-paced or full our lives already are, there is always something that can be done to improve the mind-body connection and condition. And once my clients start to feel themselves again, once they get a glimpse into the alternate them, as I did years ago, well, there's just no going back. I invite you to continue the simple check-ins of your mind-body system as we've done here this morning throughout your day. And if you or someone you know is currently experiencing health issues that don't seem to be improving with traditional treatments, if you're ready to explore what your condition is really trying to teach you as part of your journey through life, if you're ready to feel like a whole person again, then please visit ajourneyintohealth.com and schedule a complimentary consultation. Thank you and have a wonderful day.